And I'm starting the webinar. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the next installment of AMAC's Legends and Leapers. We have just opened the virtual doors and are allowing attendees in, and the program will get started shortly.
Welcome in, everybody.
Welcome in.
So once again, thank you for joining us for the next installment of AMAC's Legends and Leapers. To get us started this afternoon, we're going to turn things over to Anthony Barnes, AMAC's Chief Operating Officer. Anthony.
Hey everybody, welcome to our November installment of Legends and Leapers program. As you may have noticed, we usually have our program on the last Wednesday of every month. Due to schedules and the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, we're holding our program a day early to accommodate our panelists, moderators, and of course our viewers like you. One of AMAC's goals is to help aviation professionals grow in every phase of their careers, from internship to C-suite. And these inspirational conversations like today's program acknowledge the past created by our legends and promote the next generation of diverse aviation leaders. We're about connecting our emerging leaders with seasoned industry professionals with the goal to propel our members to the next level. We're also doing this through our AMAC Builds program, which provides internship, mentorship, and fellowship opportunities for aviation professionals at career level, at levels and careers, at all career levels. For more information, you may visit us on our website at www.amac-org.com/builds. But we're looking forward to a wonderful and engaging conversation with today's powerhouse speakers. As a reminder, please use the chat feature to submit any questions you may have for the panelists, and we'll go over the questions during our audience Q&A. At this time, I'd like to turn the program over to our moderators for today, AMAC Board Chair Ricky Smith and AMAC Southeast Region Director Mori Russell. Ricky, Mori.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sharing your Thanksgiving week with us. We will not be serving dinner, but Nancy has agreed to invite everyone over to her house for Thanksgiving. And so we will put her address in the chat room. How's that, Nancy? Is that okay? She's laughing. She's choked up right now.
Yes, that's wonderful, Ricky.
That'll be wonderful. Okay.
A lot of cooking.
A lot of cooking. So so you'll notice that that Lauren Mangum is not with us today. She is still raising her newborn daughter, London, and so we decided that this was an opportunity to just show how we can step it up. And so Mori Russell has joined us again, and so I'm sure you'll find her to be a much better co-host than Lauren, because Lauren tends to she holds me back. Let's just leave it at that. So anyway,
please,
so I'm glad to have Mori joining us. I know she loves Lauren, and she's going to back Lauren, and that's all good. But I'm glad to have this this session. This is two amazing speakers. Nancy, who I won't get into introductions because Mori does that, but Nancy has been someone that I've looked up to, that I've sought advice from, who has given me advice. And those of you who know Nancy, Nancy will give you advice whether you ask for it or not. And it is always good for you, right? So I love her for that. And she's always played that role in my life and so many others. Curtis, although he's relatively new to the business, I think you'll find him intriguing because he brings a perspective that we don't normally get to talk about in AMAC. So I'm looking forward to talking to each one of them. But more importantly, I'm looking forward to sharing the screen with my good friend, my mentee, another rising star, Mori Russell. Mori.
Thank you so much, Ricky. And thank you, Curtis and Nancy, for joining us here today for our Legends and Leapers. So I'm going to do a quick introduction. I'm going to start with our leaper, Mr. Curtis Taylor, that is joining us from Indianapolis Airport Authority. He is actually the Air Service Development Coordinator there. And a little bit about Curtis. So he is from Indianapolis, I've never been there, so a local in Indianapolis. He obtained his Bachelor's of Science from Ball State University, focusing on computer information systems, and his Master's of Science from Purdue University, focused on aviation and aerospace. So with Curtis's position as Air Service Development Coordinator, Curtis is responsible for tracking air service data, identifying air service opportunities, and creating connections with airport airline partners. His efforts meeting one-on-one with various airport and airline decision makers help bring on additional nonstop flights from his home city in the airport that he's working with. Curtis currently also serves on the AMAC Emerging Leaders Committee. So you know how we come. We've got a leaper from Emerging Leaders. And he also currently serves on the Indy Aviation Career Education Academy Board. He passionately works to inspire the next generation of aviation professionals. So Curtis, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Perfect. And now I'm going to go into Miss Nancy West, which I really don't think she needs an introduction, but let me give you all a little background, because even me reading your bio helps me to understand why you are such the legend that you are. Miss Nancy West is the founder and managing member of her own company that was started back in 2005, Exstare Federal Service Group. She's also the current chair of the AMAC PAC Board of Directors. Nancy has a long history with AMAC. She's a legend, but she's still young. So when I say a long, it's more about her experience. So she was the past chair of AMAC from 1995 to 1998. She also served as the past Eastern Regional Director from 2012 to 2014. And she is also the founding chair of the AMAC Educational and Scholarship Program, now known as the AMAC Foundation. So when y'all see those scholarships and stuff going out, she was the one that helped put it in place. A little bit about Nancy is that she has a very successful track record of affecting national transportation policy and federal airport concessions, disadvantage, ACDBE, as we know, and the DBE program policy. So big effect on that. She, as I mentioned, she started her own company in 2005. After serving positions in the U.S. Department of Transportation, members of Congress, at the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, and at a law firm, at a strategic communications firm. Some of Nancy's clients, so y'all listen up because you might want to call her, are airports, transit agencies, cities, state departments of transportation, redevelopment authorities, multinational companies, small and emerging businesses, and law firms. So I think we're talking about everybody that's on the call. So Nancy, thank you so much. I know I'm missing a lot because there's a lot to say about you, but thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mori, for those introductions. Again, both outstanding panelists. So let me start out with the first question. I'm going to try to tap into both the legend and the leaper position that you guys play, roles that you play on this panel. So with you, Nancy, you've been around AMAC for a long time, right? AMAC is AMAC partly because of your efforts over the last several years. I need you to talk a little bit about how AMAC has evolved from your perspective. I don't think people quite understand how far AMAC has traveled you've traveled that road with AMAC, and so I need you to share with the panel from your perspective how AMAC has evolved. And then Curtis, when she's done, now she has a lot to say, so you may only have 2 minutes left in the session when she's done because she has a lot to say about this. But when she's done, can you talk about where you would like to see AMAC 10 to 15 years from now, right? Because you'll be around, right, driving AMAC, perhaps leading AMAC during that period of time. And so from your perspective, where would you like to see AMAC over the next 10 to 15 years? Okay. Nancy?
Okay. Well, thank you, Ricky. You're right. I do have a lot to say because I have been involved in AMAC since 1989. And I'll start with the people. The organization, even before AMAC was officially an organization in 1988, I have to give credit where credit is due, to the Clark Sharps of the world, to the Leon Watkins of the world, and to a lot of the folks who are on this call who literally rolled up their sleeves and saw a need for more voices around equity, inclusion, and diversity in airport contracting and concessions. So I want to give props to those who raised me, because without them, I would not have been able to be a participant in AMAC the way I have and continue to contribute the way I have. But how AMAC has evolved, when we started out, I mean, we were fighting, and I mean, we're still fighting, but we were street fighting back then. Even though there were regulations in place, the pushback that we got from the airport community as a whole in terms of diversity and inclusion was very strong. And I mean, when I say that, you know, we talk about Industry Day, which I hope will get mentioned on this call, but when we started Industry Day back in the 90s, early 90s, Mario Trevino was chair of AMAC, and it was the board of directors, and we went door to door on Capitol Hill to advocate. Now, as AMAC has evolved, you know, over those many years, the Industry Day, the engagement from our members, the voices that get heard from all parts of the aviation community have caused AMAC to have an influence on PFC legislation, on the infrastructure bills, on the capital development that happens at airports, requiring certification training. There are so many things that AMAC has done over the years that have benefited everyone who is participating as a member of AMAC and both on this call today. The other area that I think AMAC has evolved is really focusing on its workforce diversity mission. I see that with Curtis on the call and Mori and all of the initiatives that weren't in place, you know, back in the day. I mean, the forward thinking around that workforce development piece is a big evolution of AMAC, and one that I'm proud to see and to have been a small part of, because, you know, back in the day when folks went to door at those universities on their own time and their own dime, you know, Lavelle Fitch, for one. And I tell you, it had an impact. And I mean, now I see, you know, the forward thinking around that. And the other thing I think where AMAC has evolved and continues to evolve is giving back. I think AMAC now has a lot of programs because of the generosity of members, the willingness of people to step up, and I'd like to see more people step up to the plate, because we all have a stake in this organization. Because without it, none of us would have the ability to participate in contracting and employment in the way we do now. And there is a lot more that needs to be done, but you know, that's a quick snapshot. But I tell you, this organization has evolved, you know, the legislative perspective, the initiatives that it undertakes, the giving back that it does, and the leadership. It just keeps evolving. And as Ricky mentioned, yes, I'm a mentor to everybody because I've seen it all, done it all, and we, have to keep rolling up our sleeves.
Curtis?
Yeah, so thanks everyone for allowing me to join you guys today. Super excited. I, started with AMAC as an intern at the Indianapolis Airport Authority and through Holly Harrington, which I'm sure some of you on this call know who Holly is. She allowed me to get into AMAC and understand AMAC's mission. And so one thing that I've been thinking about, during my time during school at Purdue was AMAC having a presence and a focus at some of these universities. At Purdue University, where I went to get my master's, I can tell you I was the only Black person in my program, and how can we promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in some of the schools specifically and have a presence at some of these universities, because I think there's still a level of work that needs to be done on the education side that during my time at Purdue, I saw definitely needed to be they needed to pursue that initiative. And so in 10 to 15 years, I would like to see AMAC, with presences in HBCUs and in, PWI organizations and in universities, just so that presence is there and just so that connection is there. And Mori, I mentioned this on one of our committee meetings with emerging leaders, was just, hey, make that connection between Purdue and AMAC, because that could help feed the pipeline into AMAC and help feed the pipeline into aviation for some of our talented Black and minority professionals. So my answer is, in 10 to 15 years, I would like to see large presences of AMAC, school organizations, clubs, some type of connection between these universities that have, aviation programs, to be able to, continue the pipeline and build up the next generation of minority leaders in this space. And so I'm, trying to work with everyone to kind of make that connection and make that happen. But I think, once we get that foundation in some of these universities and in some of these aviation programs, and I think, we'll see tremendous progress in terms of promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workforce.
Thank you so much, Curtis. And I mean, you are doing it, you're working towards it, because I do remember, us talking about that. That is an initiative that we want to take on, with our committee. But I think, as Nancy said, it's going to take us rolling up those sleeves and doing the work. So I'm glad to have you a part of our Emerging Leaders Committee, because it's going to be, we're going to need you to help lead that effort. So thank you. And if I could go on to the next question, just really addressing Miss Nancy, is, when I look at your bio and hear kind of just your process to get where you've gotten professionally, it's been a huge impact on helping minorities and through policies and all of that. Can you explain, like, is this something that you planned for your life? Like, how did you get here? Where, the impact you're making professionally really affects us.
Okay. Well, how I got here was my mother, who volunteered for everything in our community when I was a little girl. And we were really, really poor. I had nothing. Just nothing. But we were raised in the church. My mother fed anybody that was hungry. I couldn't understand it. 7 days a week, and I really mean that, 7 days a week, my mother volunteered everywhere. And when I was a kid, I always knew that was, part of what I had to do. But I knew that I wasn't going somewhere 7 days a week. I wanted to find a way where I could touch a lot of people. And so as I got older and, went to school, and I'm like many of you, I am a college dropout. I didn't go back. I raised 3 children by myself. And, I had a dream and I was always interested in politics. I always wanted to know how things affected me. So, as a little kid, watching the president on TV and not understanding how these laws and things happen and nobody knew about them. So I really got interested in politics. So my path to Washington, D.C., well, I wanted to be an accountant too. So my path to Washington, D.C. was via the FBI. It was my first job in Washington. In the accounting department, I was real nosy because back then you could literally look at anybody's file. And I mean, there was so much information and I was like, never had access to information, but I was in the FBI at a time when it was right after the J. Edgar Hoover era, pretty much. It was very racist. People treated me like I was a stepchild. So I looked for a job on Capitol Hill where I could really learn about the legislative process. And so I worked first for the youngest member of Congress at the time, whose name was Tom Downey. He was from Islip, New York. I also worked for my congressman from my home, Eugene Atkinson, and then finally on the Senate side for Senator Grassley, who was a junior member of Congress. And in the time I was on the Hill, I mean, I heard so much about, these small business programs and all of these things. And so, I got to the US DOT through a political appointment. I actually did 2 political appointments during the Reagan years. And one of my assignments and where I got really interested in what the subject matter we're talking about is when I was a special assistant in the Office of the Secretary. And there were over 389 certification appeals in the Office of Civil Rights at that time. And I was like, what is this program about? Why aren't these people being certified? And the true story, the director at that time said, well, the White House said, it's not that important. We don't need to certify these people. I mean, it just sent me into a place where I needed to understand why my people could not have access to opportunity. So that's one of the ways I got there. And 6 years, I had a lot of impact on, asking questions and trying to get things right. And even though, from a political level, I made it a point to meet and learn about this program from all the career people who had, even back in the 70s, and I'm talking 78, I do know that Mr. Clark Sharp was on a task force within the FAA headed by Jim Wilding, who many of you may not remember. He was the first airport director for the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority when it started, and they did a study way back in 78. But I got knee deep in this, and and the other part of it, when I went to the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, it was a brand new authority. Reagan and Dulles still are the only airports that are federally owned. They are under a lease with the federal government, but they are federally owned airports. And so I had an opportunity to really build upon what I had learned at USDOT in my days on Capitol Hill. So I wanted to have an impact on those policies that got put in place, even on that local level. One of the things that I have always done throughout, touching things through the legislative process as a lobbyist and all of that, making sure that people understand things from an economic development perspective. To me, it's about economic development in our communities when we employ people. It's not about goals and numbers. And I hope, that we can get to that point, as we continue in the future. But, that's what led me to it. I have an interest, I have a care, and I have a selfish reason. And 2 of them are on this call, Mori and Curtis. I want to see the future generation here build upon all of the things that the legacy of the people I talked about brought to bear, brought to the table. Because Leon Watkins, I tell you, but for him, I probably would still be in the public sector. And he told me, so many people, so much, and you've learned so much about this. issue, take it and do something with it that's going to help everybody. And that light bulb went off and I haven't looked back. That's it. I mean, that's truly it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for like doing all that you do. And, it's beautiful. Like your mom instilled that in you, and then you were seeing what your mom did. And it's almost like I wrote down work smarter, not harder.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think, the other thing that has always driven me are people who care, like my mom and like the folks I've mentioned. And, for me, getting involved in AMAC just was my ticket. And I tell you, Vince Joubert, who's since deceased, was the chair of AMAC and chair of AMAC's Government Affairs Committee. That's how I got into AMAC, through the Government Affairs Committee. It was 92. I had been going to AMAC for many years, but in 92, the conference was in Atlanta, Georgia. And this committee chair got up and talked about all these wonderful things that the organization was doing. And I said, well, I got to volunteer for that committee. So little did I know he was the committee. And I was stunned at how much AMAC had done with this one person. And he conned me into being the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. And I mean, we rocked and rolled. And and we had a team of people who just believed in themselves. They wanted better for them, for their communities, for their children. It's all about building wealth like everyone else. I think that's, a key piece of, why AMAC exists. I mean, its goals and missions speak volumes of that. It just, people who really care about the future, in their communities and of their families. If they're not involved in AMAC, everybody that knows me know about AMAC, because I tell them about it. And, I want to see folks really step up as they're doing to continue that legacy.
So, Curtis, so I'm going to ask you a question, and remember, you're representing your generation, your posse. Okay. So I'm kind of putting you on the spot. It's not always easy for one to have a true appreciation for a period of time that they didn't live, right? And so when you hear Nancy talk about all the trailblazing work that she witnessed, that she was involved with, I mean, she mentioned Leon Watkins, the late Leon Watkins. She mentioned Clark Sharp and Mario Trevino, and if you gave her enough time, she could probably double that list, at least. These are all trailblazers who put a lot on the line so that we could be doing this, right? So my question to you is, and again, you're representing your generation. How does that move you? What does that mean to you? I mean, do you appreciate that? And if you do, how does that move you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think for me personally, it certainly moves me, because I know the tireless efforts, the discrimination you faced, and the obstacles and hurdles that Nancy had to overcome just to even give us an opportunity to get to this point, to have an organization like this where I can talk about being on college campuses, down the line, and doing the things that, ensure that minorities are represented in the aviation space. I think, that's really, really important to me personally. And I think, speaking for my generation, I think it's important for my generation as well. I think we have only built upon the strides that Nancy and previous generations have done. And, we have to, give credit where credit is due, right? Because we couldn't have, some of these conversations without the groundwork and without the brick and mortar that Nancy and previous generations have set for us. So I think we definitely appreciate the time and effort and everything that previous generations have gone through. And yeah, me personally, I am 100%, appreciative. And, I want to thank Nancy for your efforts in laying that groundwork and getting everything started so I can come up and, have these conversations and kind of inspire the next generation, right? So, hopefully the next generation will look back at me 20 years from now and say like, hey, thank you for building upon, the work that the founders of this organization did, and kind of look back to me and other folks that are leading kind of now to, continue to move the organization forward. So 100% grateful and tremendous gratitude to those who came before.
So I'm going to come back to you, and then Nancy. So Nancy is Nancy is the ultimate go-to person, right? Nobody of significance comes into AMAC without somebody saying, you should talk to Nancy, right? And she makes herself available for everybody, and everyone comes out of that conversation richer than they were when they went in, right? But that didn't happen by accident, right? She talked some about some of the tireless efforts she put into to become Nancy West, right? So first of all, Nancy, second, Nancy, I want you to talk about how does that make you feel? Okay, but before you do that, so Curtis, what are you going to do to become Curtis Taylor, the go-to person 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, I think
not much what can you do? Not what you're going to do, but what can you do?
I think the strides of making sure, so I'm on the board of an aviation organization here called the Indianapolis Aviation Career Education Academy. Yeah. And, leveraging stuff like that in my local community to make the connection between, what they're doing now and how they're learning aviation to, getting into AMAC and being that person. So actually one person I mentored and continue to mentor now, he got his start in ACE, and we were able to talk to him about AMAC and the mission of AMAC. And as a result of making that connection, we were able to get him a scholarship through the AMAC, the student scholarship opportunities. So, stuff like that, making connections, getting into my community, talking with, alums from my university, alums of that aviation program, and then just leveraging them and making connections to, established professionals in AMAC, right? So, that's what I've done in the past, and will continue to do that. And it's something I'm passionate about, right? So it's like, I like making connections and connecting people. I'm in the business of connecting people, right, and making sure, people are going to the places they want to go, from an air service perspective to bring in talking about my job role, and then, professionally and from a professional development perspective. So connecting people, to make them or to help them reach their goals professionally. And then any way I can support, being a mentor or, volunteering at different things, any way I can be of support to the next generation, I'm all for, and that's what I'm passionate about. And yeah, so I think just leveraging connections and leveraging, my personal and professional network with AMAC's network to help grow the organization.
Well, you're well on your way to becoming Curtis Taylor, all caps. Okay.
Yeah,
All caps.
and someone commented and they said, I'm trying to see who it is, but they were like, he already is the go-to person.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Do you know who that is that commented?
Wait, who is it?
Hold on.
Was it?
I don't know why I can't see the.
I'm looking.
Oh yeah, the chat.
Was it Dave? Was it Dave Shaw?
Dave.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah, Dave's awesome.
Okay, so you wanted Nancy. How did you want Nancy to answer that?
To be, Nancy West, the go-to person. How does that make you feel?
Well, I'll tell you how it makes me feel. It makes me feel wonderful when, whatever I am doing, whether it's, to work, to AMAC, it's the outcome. It's not about me. Never has been. I always tell people, like when I started my company, it wasn't it was about, yeah, certainly about, I had to eat and get my hair done and, help my family and all of those things. But my main reason for starting my company was so I could give back through my work. And so when people say, well, what do you do? I solve problems. That's what I do. I solve problems. And when I can solve a problem for someone or help them overcome an obstacle or barrier that's unnecessary, I just want to shout from the rafters. And I've always been like that. It's never been, I need somebody to give me something or recognize me. I don't need recognition. I need you to be successful. That's always been my philosophy. I need that's what nourishes my soul, making others whole through the wisdom and knowledge and all the mentors and opportunities that I beat doors down to take advantage of. I mean, it's incumbent upon me to give that back. And so I feel like $1 million because I'm still here, able to give back, through AMAC and, underprivileged kids. I don't want nobody to be hungry. I do so many other things beside AMAC that give me joy, but it just makes me feel, I feel like a queen because I can do that. And I took the time to make sure that I learned all about, this aviation industry, because, a lot of people may not realize that, airports, aerospace industries are the largest economic generators in their communities. And that was a big deal to me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna help everybody that helps themselves, because I don't help nobody, don't help themselves. Now, y'all know that about me. But that, like I said, the ability to give back, reach back, and continue to give back and reach back makes me feel like a queen.
All right.
Can you adjust your crown then, Queen? Yes. Ricky, if you don't mind, I kind of want to take another spin on that question, but almost because you all know this is Legends and Leapers, right? So you all are here because we have a clear legend and we have a very evident leaper. So I want you to give yourself a little flowers, which Miss Nancy, you just did do that, and Curtis, you did that, Mr. Connector, Mrs. Problem Solver. But if you can just use one word to identify why you are here as that leaper, and same with you, Miss Nancy, just if you could give us one word to describe, what makes you the leaper and what makes you the legend.
Okay, I'll go. I would say motivated or motivator, just because, I've always been extremely motivated to reach my goals and to, pursue something that I was passionate about, which was aviation. I've always liked aviation, but, kind of my parents instilled in me to give 110%, everything that you do. So that's always motivated me. And I think just being motivated to pursue my passions. And then, once I was able to get exposed to AMAC, motivated to inspire other people like me to be motivated about, not just aviation, but anything professionally in my community. So I think just motivated, being motivated is kind of how I've gotten here. And I continue to be motivated. I'm still, looking forward to reaching some other goals that I have. But I think that's how, I was able to get myself here today.
I love it. We'll give you two words: motivated and motivator. I love that. That's you serving and you taking on, and then you serving others. Miss Nancy?
I would say tenacity. And I mean, that's from a personal level all the way through, where we are today on this call, because tenacity, but for tenacity, I wouldn't even be, sitting at this table. And the tenacity and not allowing anybody to say no. I don't know what no means or can't do, or you won't, because so many people said to me as a young person, you'll never be anybody, you'll never have anything. And always resonated with me because I was determined, because see, nobody can see what's up here. I mean, that's why you get this head around your skull. And I always had a plan. And I talked a little bit about it on this call today, but tenacity, you know, keep forging forward, and, you know, all of the things that Curtis is talking about, you know, motivation and tenacity go hand in hand. And people have to have that in order to be successful.
So, so Nancy, you've been on the airport side, and you've been and you're now on the dark side, the consulting side, right? So can you speak a little bit about how the difference between the two? Has one been more challenging than the other? And then Curtis, I think Mori wants to probe a little bit into your career position.
Okay. I think, you know, on a personal level, you know, both were very rewarding. I mean, working in, because I was a senior staff person to the board of directors at AMAC.
Mm-hmm.
I think what was challenging, I didn't understand that until after I left the public sector. I think what was challenging for me is that, you know, on this issue in particular, I mean, folks weren't always in the same place. And you had to bring them around through tenacity, you know, because folks were like, you know, you can be a part of AMAC, but I told them, I said, there are going to be times when our views are going to differ, and I want to be allowed to do my thing to help, you know, the cause for this organization. And I was allowed to do that, but it took a lot. I think the other thing that I would say about working in the airport environment is that too often I saw folks not reaching back and giving back. I saw, you know, I didn't just work for EMWA, I was engaged, you know, in the industry. So you're with your peers all of the time. And, you know, in my era, there were very few women who were in senior positions, you know, at the airport. And you had to reach back and give back. And I can remember very vividly being in a senior retreat. And the CEO said that one of the biggest accomplishments was the diversity of the organization. And I stopped him in mid-sentence and I said, I disagree. And he asked me why. And I said, look around the room. I was the only woman and the only minority in it. And from there, you know, we were able to build a lot of the things that have happened through the years, you know, that foundation of getting people, because a lot of times, you know, it's not intentional, it's unintentional. And if you don't educate people, they have no understanding of where you sit at the table. And I think that from that perspective, that was a little bit different for me because I wasn't used to sort of that whole, well, I was used to a bureaucracy because, you know, federal government is, but it was a little bit different when I went to the airport because the philosophy is we've always done it this way. And there wasn't a willingness to change. And it took a lot of discussion and education and training of people to get folks to do, you know, what they do. So when I went to the public sector, you know, even before I started my company, I mean, the public sector is a little bit different. And I think even then, when I started in, you know, the public sector, my first job after the airport was in a law firm. I'm not an attorney at all. A lot of people think I am. I don't know why, but I'm not an attorney. I went to a law firm as a lobbyist, a transportation lobbyist. And so, you know, I remember my first day there, I mean, thinking, you know, geez, this is going to be really interesting. I was the only African-American. There were no African-American women attorneys in the law firm, and there was only one African-American, I mean, in the Washington office, I should say, and only one African-American attorney in the Washington office, and that was one Bill Kirk. And, you know, the first project I worked on was milk regulation of all things. Got a very huge piece of legislation passed, called the Northeast Interstate Dairy Compact. But then on the aviation lobbying side, I was one of the lead lobbyists on the PFC increase, and that was an interesting experience because private sector, but I was there at the table. And so now in my own company, which is why I left corporate America, it was just too much sort of disconnection from reality, sometimes intentional and more often than not intentional. And then, really wanting to have, like I said earlier, the impact on this thing called, equality and diversity and inclusion. So as you call it, on the dark side, honey, this has been the brightest side of my life. I would never look back because I have been able to do so many things that I would not have otherwise been able to do, as a government employee. The time I spent on AMAC, I always tease the staff. I asked Anthony and Shermana and Ebony when they're gonna send me my paycheck, and they told me I should talk to Ricky.
So Ricky, where's her check at?
That's why she's calling me. Now I know.
But that seriously, I mean, both of the experiences were really rewarding because of the networking and the people I got to meet and the people who reached back and the education that we gave each other and continue to give. I tell you, it's just, I mean, I eat and breathe and sleep this stuff because of the things that we're talking about, just the ability, and a lot of you know that I am really winding it down next year. I'm gonna have me some fun. I guess I'll be volunteering for AMAC, but that has been, just the differences. I mean, I can't say anymore because every experience I've had has been rewarding because I made it rewarding, because I reached out to people. And when you acted like you didn't like me, I made you like me. And because I had a motive too. I wanted to know why you were such a sourpuss, but I also wanted to learn from you, and I wanted you to know who I was. So I had, the networking, just as we do through AMAC, has always been there. But in terms of really having the ability to get things done, the private sector is it. And I tell you, there were people who shall remain nameless in the public sector who put their careers on the line to help this organization. Mm-hmm. And they did things in that dialogue and that camaraderie really went a long way. So.
All right, good stuff.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, I don't know, Ricky, if you have a last question, but Curtis, first of all, you said with your master's in the aviation and aerospace management, you were the only African-American in the program. And then, really, even when I think of air service development, I don't know much about it. I don't have that close of a connection to it. But it definitely stuck out that you're meeting one-on-one with these airlines to try to, make sure you're kind of creating the easiest flights. Can you just give us a kind of a high level overview of what you do and what it's like to be dealing one-on-one with the airlines?
Yeah, of course. So air service development, I describe it as like airline recruiting, building the business case with data and, whatever, we're working with businesses locally to support adding new flights to and from the city of Indianapolis. So, like I said, I really enjoy connecting people to the places they want to go. So this is the perfect role for me. So meeting one-on-one with airline decision makers. We actually had a conference called the Routes Americas Conference held, oh my gosh, this was pre-COVID. This was February 2020. So it was right before everything shut down. But luckily we got a chance to host it here in Indianapolis. And we got to bring all these airline decision makers from around the world to Indianapolis to kind of show them why Indy was great. And this is where I was able to get in, and kind of, just dive right into meeting with airline decision makers and the people that make the decision on, allocating which aircraft go to which, destinations and in which cities and which flights. And so, yeah, that is, from a high level, what my role is. I help build the business case with data, speaking with our business partners locally, and speaking with our airline partners to understand that. So it's been great. I was able to, get a taste of air service development as an intern, which is great. The Indianapolis Airport Authority has a great internship program where it allows you to shadow different departments, and air service was one I was really interested in learning about. And that's how I, was able to get into that space. But yeah, it's something about connecting people and the thrill and the fun that I get to have when we get to launch a new flight or get a new airline to the city. Like, we just launched a new airline last month. It's called Contour, which is a local regional airline. And that was something that, we had been talking to and building that business case for years. It takes a while to do this, right? So to finally do that, and it, ultimately benefits our community and helps from an economic development standpoint. And, that's something I really enjoy. And I'm glad I was able to kind of get into this space because it's really cool, to be honest. So that's why I really enjoy it, and just connecting people.
So Curtis, I don't know that you realize how valuable you are right now in this space, because AMAC has been very, very focused on the concessions, contracting, employment side. Rarely are we exposed to, unless again you're on the airport side, are we exposed to the air service development side. So I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm not going to get too technical. I promise you we wouldn't get too technical. But can you help the audience understand why an airline would decide to go to Indianapolis compared to another city? What is it that you're trying? What is it that you're saying to them to convince them that your city is a better city than another airport or another city?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what we try to do here in Indianapolis is highlight our business community, highlight the leisure component of the city, and what can you do to visit here that you can't do anywhere else in the world. So we have the Indianapolis 500, which is a month-long celebration of racing. That's kind of our staple with sports, is racing. So we highlight the huge sporting and sports culture here, and then we highlight businesses. Eli Lilly, headquartered here, big pharmaceutical, and they help from a business travel standpoint. They're huge for us. And we sell airlines on kind of why Indy, why this city, and like you said, what makes you choose Indianapolis over some of our other peer markets or peer cities. And so we really try to find stuff that's unique to our destination and to our city, and then inform the airlines, because they don't know. They have American Airlines probably serves hundreds of cities in the United States. And so we have to really inform them on what's going on locally here in Indianapolis. And, we do that by letting them know of, conferences that take place here in Indianapolis, different sporting events, new businesses that open up, new headquarters that come to the city, letting them know that, hey, that's a potential market for you to break into if a new headquarters comes to Indy and they're traveling a lot to Portland, Oregon, or somewhere else. That could be an opportunity for you. So that's kind of what I do and what the air service development team does in Indy to really sell the city. And I think we're doing a good job. We've got 2 new airlines this year and countless numbers of new flights that we've added this year. And so it's been really rewarding and like I said, something I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if nobody's told you, Curtis, like amazing work, because I'm sure you're a huge part of that team and just bringing new flights and stuff. So salute to you.
And a very, very competitive, highly technical, and Curtis is trying to, summarize it in a form without getting too technical, but it's a very, very difficult field to compete in because you're at the whim of the airlines, right? And all cities are coming with their pitches, and every city has something that's amazing. And the airlines have to make decisions based on what's important to them. So you also have to understand the airlines and their personalities and their needs and that kind of stuff. So I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I really am, to be in that space. I really am.
Thank you so much.
Keep representing for us, brother.
Absolutely.
I will.
And I just want to read this real quick from David Shaw. He said, what Curtis didn't tell you about the Routes Americas conference in February 2020, he was 2 months on the job and had the first meeting with Sun Country Airlines, who recently started service out of Indy in October of 2021. The relationship with Sun Country all started with the initial one-on-one meeting Curtis had with Sun Country. These relationships take years to develop, yet Sun Country began service in the middle of the global pandemic, a little less than 2 years after the initial meeting with Curtis. Amazing is the perfect word.
See, now you're showing off.
Hey, man, we didn't know your BD skills was like that.
Yes.
But that's great. And Ricky, can I don't know if you have a last question, but I did want to just ask a personal, professional last question.
Yep, go for it, Mori.
Okay, so again, it doesn't have to be one word, but Miss Nancy West and Curtis, 2022 is what, less than 40 days away. Can you give us let us in a little bit to who you are personally, like a personal 2022 goal and then a professional 2022 goal?
Okay, a personal 2022 goal is to retire. I mean, be lazy and put my feet up and retire. Good. That's a personal goal.
Good luck with that. That's a stretch goal, by the way. Good luck with that.
Well, I mean, I'm so there. When you're tired, well, I'm tired, and when it's time. Yeah. So that's a professional goal. A personal goal. Professional. Y'all know me. I'm not one of those people who is, idle. So, so professionally, I want to do more speaking. I don't take on no more jobs for AMAC. I'll keep the ones I have. I'll keep doing them. But I do want to spend more time, doing volunteer work and just really, trying to mentor young people. And I think from a very high level professional goal, when I say I want to do more speaking and things like that, I really want to have a more dialogue around economic development. I really want our airport community, and I mean communities in general, to get away from, the only time a minority woman can participate in something as a business owner is if they're certified and there is a goal. That, I think, while we need it, there's still a whole lot of discrimination. I think that economic development message, has to get driven some more, a lot more. So that's what I want to do.
We need a new segment. Anthony, Ricky, Miss Ebony, if you're listening, AMAC, you hear what she's saying she want to talk about.
I heard
it. Put that out there.
That's
beautiful, Miss Nancy. Thank you. And Curtis?
Good.
Yeah, I would say a professional or personal goal. I'll start with that personal goal. It's to travel internationally. I'm trying to go somewhere overseas, do something because we haven't been able to go anywhere. Right. We haven't been able to go anywhere for the last, couple of years. So now that borders are opening up, I want to travel somewhere overseas or go visit Europe because I've never been. And then professionally, similar to Nancy, more speaking engagements, maybe going back to Ball State or Purdue and speaking with some students there. But yeah, pursue more, external and internal speaking engagements to, help improve that as I, continue on in my career. But yeah, those are the two things those are my
Look
goals.
at you all already in your 2022 goals.
All right.
All right, well, thank you, Curtis. Curtis is a very bright young man, and we're really glad that he's a part of our one of our rising stars in the AMAC family. And of course, the legendary Nancy West, thank you for speaking with us today. As always, thank you, our moderators, Ricky Smith, and for filling in for Lauren, Mori Russell. Thank you for leading us in the conversation. Nancy kind of touched on it a little earlier with our economics and talking about opportunities around economic opportunities at our airports. So please save the date for our Economic Opportunity and Policy Forum in March of 2022. That's March 21st and 22nd, 2022 in Washington, D.C. But we look forward to you also joining us before that at next month's Legends and Leapers program. Again, thank you for joining us. We wish you a very safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday. Take care.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Oh, see, Curtis didn't know.
Yeah,
so
that's
hold
the
on
after.
for a quick second.
He didn't know about the after party.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And
Thank
thank you for the nice comment, Mr. Ben DeCosta.
Yes. Thanks for being so inspiring, Nancy.
I was just about to say the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
Ms. Nancy. Definitely someone for me to.
Just being me, that's, and I was happy to be a part of this, and thanks for having me.
So you need a t-shirt that just says, "That's what I do."
I like that.
It says I solve problems, and or back says that's what I do. How about that?
Well, I have one question that I didn't ask you, Miss Nancy. So I love that you said that, because I struggle sometimes, if somebody asks you, oh, who you are, what do you do? And like, I'm assuming your response is I solve problems, right? Like when, and you don't have to give me an age, but like, when was it that you felt confident and sure enough to be answering like that?
Probably when I was about 8.
Whoa.
I've never been one that had a hard time expressing my opinion, but I mean, because I mean, like I wanted to be the president of the United States at one point when I was a baby kid, a little kid in elementary school. But because I'm a very private person, so they're talking about, they want to know if you eat broccoli and all that stuff. So, but seriously, I think when I was around 36 years old is when I did, because I had clawed and fought so much at that point. There was nothing that could stop me or crush me. I mean, which is part of, my company name, Exstare. It's the meaning of it is to be prominent, to be on record, not to be destroyed or lost. That's what the name of my company means, and that's who I am. And I just have been. I mean, I was probably about 36 years old, like I said, but I had clawed and fought for a long time to, climb those mountains and overcome those barriers. So, yeah.
Thank you for the inspiration.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Look, y'all give me inspiration. I see all these wonderful things that you all are doing. Oh, it just warms my heart. It just warms my heart. It does.
Oh, we love you.
We love you
Absolutely.
too. Amen.
Absolutely.
Call me, please.
I will call you. I will call you today.
She needs her check, Ricky.
Well, we're going to negotiate on a percentage increase.
Okay.
All right. Peace
All
out,
right.
you all.
Take care,
Thank you. Happy
right.
holidays.
Happy holidays. Everyone be safe and well.
Yep. Bye.
And think of those less fortunate.
Absolutely.